President-elect Donald Trump posts on his social media network, he said the idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over.
Before we continue, we invite you to follow our channel, the only American show reporting live from Ukraine every day.
John Hanson here. Today, you'll get Wendy tomorrow, Thursday, as her and I do a little do-si-do from morning to afternoon tomorrow. And one of the thrills of filling in for Bob in the mornings is a chance to check in with Joseph Lindsley, Ukrainian Freedom News. You hear him every day here around this time. And Joseph, you and I get to chat often around the holidays, and I'm always enthralled by your reports of how the cities continue to light up the Christmas trees, etc. And I'm curious if this year so far in Kyiv, where you are today, is no exception.
Indeed, John. Hello from Kyiv. I just arrived here. I took the midnight train from Lviv, and very, very comfortable to take, not the midnight train to Georgia, but to Kyiv. And the trains are so comfortable here. And unlike my most recent train trip a week ago, that was an unusual trip during which our train came under drone attack.
Oh my!
Very rare, but yeah, it was pretty intense. But I still can't really get it out of my dreams. But last night was a peaceful train ride. And arrived here about 9 o'clock this morning, and just sort of a gentle snow falling around Kyiv. And I just did a run about an hour ago through the city. And as I was running, you see people, workers and soldiers and others putting up Christmas trees in the main squares and in front of the cafes. So indeed, they do try to obviously hold on to that Christmas spirit. And especially, Kyiv is very different from Lviv, where I spent the past week. Lviv is very much an old world city, cobbled streets. It's in Western Ukraine. It was not as the sort of the ancient and old architecture there was not as destroyed by the Soviets, and neither was the culture. The people were able to hold on more to their rituals and traditions. And so Christmas, you feel it much more deeply in Lviv. They're Greek Catholics, so they're sort of Eastern in style, but they're still part of the Church of Rome, and they take the pre-Christmas preparation seriously. Like you try to eat less meat or no meat at all. And everywhere you go in Lviv, people are singing. Cafes, bars, on the street corners, not only during the holidays but throughout the year. Kyiv is a very different feel. It's a capital city. People move fast and don't necessarily have time to stop and sing. So it is a different feel, but you do start to see some of that festive atmosphere appearing. And we've had a few days of relative calm. I mean, after so many intense missile and especially drone attacks, really for several months, there's a strange kind of calm these past days. There's still very serious problems for the electrical infrastructure. So rolling blackouts are pretty common, but that's why everywhere you go in the city, you just hear that roar of generators. And speaking of infrastructure, one thing I didn't mention to Bob yesterday, I was talking about the Nordic countries and the Scandinavian countries and how they are preparing for war. I mean, they're sending brochures to every household in Norway and Sweden. And I forgot to mention that the internet cables that go under the sea between Finland and Sweden, yesterday, both of those countries said that there was significant damage to those cables, and they suspect sabotage. And so we're starting to see more and more sort of strange situations like that. And meanwhile, of course, we have the ongoing situation in Syria, where Russia was closely aligned with the Assad regime, and Russia has a lot of military bases there. They've already lost a few of those, and the Russian general who was in charge of sort of in a sense of defending the Assad regime. He previously, this is Lieutenant General Serhiy Kissel, he previously had been in charge of Ukraine's Kharkiv region in 2022 when Ukrainians took back Kharkiv region. So this Russian general has I guess, not a good track record, and probably it's not very welcome to Kremlin right now. But we do see, I mean, the Russian hold on Syria is quickly falling. And then we had this extraordinary events in South Korea, John, yesterday. And there was the president declared martial law late at night. And the South Korean people followed basically the Ukrainian playbook of 2014. They immediately took to the streets. They helped members of parliament climb over the walls into parliament, defying the police. And so this all started at 10 p.m. and by 4:15 in the morning, the president had reversed the martial law order because the people were in the streets resisting. And so that very much is sort of the playbook of what the Ukrainians did when they kicked out their pro-Russian government in 2014.
People certainly do have power when they're able to mobilize like that. This question deserves more than the 2 minutes you have to answer it, but you mentioned the Nordic countries. Of course, Norway, I think, was a founding member of NATO. Finland and Sweden joining in the last couple of years. Obviously, that'd be a whole different ball game with a NATO country if there's a Russian invasion. Are these fears unwarranted in your mind, or do you think that's foolish to think that couldn't happen?
I think, even among, for example, the NATO countries like Lithuania, Estonia, and Latvia, they're preparing for war too. And Poland as well. They're fortifying their border. And I think there's a sense, if you look at from the perspective of those countries, they sense actually a deep weakness in Washington policy and in the policy of Paris and Berlin when it comes to Ukraine. And they're a little bit afraid that weakness, even if a NATO country was attacked, that same weakness could apply. So they're not taking chances. But this is precisely why Finland and Sweden, I spent a lot of time in Sweden. Like they really were happy not to be in NATO. They love their independence. But they were so terrified that what's happening in Ukraine would happen to them that they thought at least NATO could offer some protection. But they're not taking that in a complacent way. And speaking of these different alliances, John, I should mention quickly that there's the BRICS alliance that sort of Russia and China have created. Mm-hmm. It includes India. It includes countries that are like anti-NATO, sort of anti-freedom. And President-elect Donald Trump, he issued a post on his social media network. He said the idea that the BRICS countries are trying to move away from the dollar while we stand by and watch is over. And because the BRICS countries are trying to compete with America. He didn't mention anything about Ukraine or Russia's war in Ukraine, but that tweet was a hopeful sign for many Ukrainians that maybe Trump will be tough on this burgeoning alliance of sort of the totalitarian regimes on this planet.
Well, to wait and see. Yeah. And I think that this time of anytime you have a new president coming in, especially one that was the former president, it's just uncertainty, right? And maybe these things will calm down a little bit. These fears will be assuaged a little bit as the new president gets sworn in and we see maybe where the policies are going to go. Joseph Lindsley, we're out of time today. We appreciate you joining us, and you'll be chatting with Wendy tomorrow. Have fun and have a good rest of your day.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Что он сказал?
Well, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чьей ты стороне?